Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make this lap board using our Rustic Pallet type top and denim for the back. Inside we have a beanbag filler from Fairfield World, who sponsored this video, and also used some products from Dritz to finish off the edges and make sure this all is good. So I'm going to give you all the supplies in this video as well as in the description. So in case you want to just copy and paste that into a search. This is definitely something you can personalize. You can use a different type of canvas or something else decorative that matches your decor. You can also paint this if you wanted. For the top of the lap board, we're going to be using this wood pallet that I got from Michael's. It's already stained and all ready for use. It has the slats on the back, which we're going to use to secure our fabric around. But first, we're going to create a casing to go inside that will hold all of the beanbag filler. That way I don't have to worry about it falling out through any of the staples or anything. I just took a piece of white fabric and laid it on top to kind of measure it around the slats. I want the casing on the inside to be smaller than what the denim will be around the edge. So I just made sure that I took my pencil and kind of lightly drew around, and then took my ruler and made it all super nice and straight. Then I just used that as a template for a second piece because the casing needs a front and back. And it doesn't really matter whether the fabric is really nice or it has stains on it because it's going to be inside. So this is great to use some of maybe the fabric that you think is uglier than you originally thought, or something just plain. We're going to take this fabric and we're going to sew around all of the sides, leaving a gap probably about here or maybe here to add the beanbag filler to. So I've gone ahead and lightly pinned around all of the sides. I'm going to leave a gap at the top so the beanbag filler can just go straight down. So I have my needle set to the left, and my stitch length is just a standard for my machine, which is a 2.5. So I'm going to go straight, watching the edge, make sure I back stitch. So I stop at the corner and turn it, so I'm making sure when I stop at the corner it's still the width of the least of the foot. So I've taken it out of my machine, and normally if this was, say, like a pillow, I would just trim the corners and turn it inside out. But because we need this to hold a lot of beanbag filler, I'm going to box the edges. So what I want is the edges of this seam to go the same direction. And what I'm doing with my fingers is just lining up the front and back. So you can see, I don't know if this is coming up. You can see I'm just kind of lining it up. And it's only going to be, say, like an inch or so down, which is why the ruler is going to be really handy in a moment. But for right now, I'm going to pin right there. And I'm going to do all four corners exactly the same. So I'm just going to show you for one. So I have that in there for now. I'm going to back my machine up. So I got my ruler out. And like I said, this is going to be inside. So even if there was anything showing, it wouldn't matter. I'm going to unpin that. Make sure we have this all nice and open. You could definitely iron this if you want to, but I don't feel like you need to. So what I'm doing is lining up the seam with the cross access of my ruler here, so it's an inch down. And all I'm doing is marking across. And what it'll end up being is about an inch on each side, so it'll be about a 2-inch drop. And that should be plenty to hold the beanbag filler. So I have that in place. All I'm going to do is repin it. going to turn. I'm just going to keep doing them. So I pinned all 4 corners in the same way. There's a pencil seam here that I made so I could tell where to sew. So all I'm doing is taking it back to my machine. I'm actually going to set my needle to the center to make it easier to follow that line. And I'm going to do the same thing for all 4 corners. So we're done with the sewing. You can see it's all nice and straight. I just use white thread. Now, if you wanted, you could trim off the ends, which I probably will, just to help with bulk. It really doesn't matter. When you're doing that, or if you choose to do that, you still want to leave about 1/2 inch. So as you see, it boxes out the corner really nice, makes it nice and square, and it'll be kind of like a rectangle when we're done. Or a rectangular cube. So you can see how that looks. So it'll hold a little bit more polyfill this way. If you didn't feel like you could get your arm through the opening, you could use a chopstick or something else long, like a dowel rod, just to shape out the corners. Because you have 8 corners versus 4 to shape out. Alright, so that is that. I'm going to take my machine off because we need to fill this. To fill this project, we're going to use Poly-Fil beanbag filler. This is a kind of an older bag that I've had hanging around for a little while. So it is messy. I usually keep it inside of a trash bag because once you start using it, it gets all over the place. So you want to be very vigilant in keeping track of your filler. So I just have a little cup here. All I'm going to do is actually open this a little bit wider so I can dip the cup inside. I can get my whole hand in there. And cup. Ugh, it's going to be all over the place. We're going to regret this later. So what I'm actually going to do is put this inside the bag. I'm trying to move it so you can see it. That way if anything falls back into the bag. There are a bunch of different ways you can do this. You can probably use a funnel, but I don't want to go search for a funnel. Also, I think it might not work. So all I'm doing is very carefully taking the cup, pour it inside of the opening of our casing while it's inside of the beanbag filler bag. It's a lot of bag. So you can see it a little better in there. Sure it's free of fuzz. Not that it really matters. Scoop some more up. So what we're trying to do is just fill it not where it's incredibly hard as far as like overstuffed, but we do want enough where it will have some support when the lap board is, well, on a lap. What I'm doing is going back and forth on the amount that's in here, because the first beanbag project I ever did, I put way too much in there. And the Poly-Fil beanbag filler doesn't compress the same as the standard stuff that may come in a pre-made beanbag. So, yeah, it's quite the hard pillow upstairs. But I want this to be soft enough that it will adjust to your lap. So I might take a tiny bit more out. Like I said before, obviously this is not mess free, so you want to have your table all set up in a way where, say if you have animals and whatnot, they won't get into it too much. So all I'm doing is folding in our gap so the edges are about the same as the seam. That is ideal. Normally I would just pen going that direction, but because it is full of things that I don't want to fall out, I'm going to be a little bit more diligent in the pinning on it. So I think that's pretty good. Cross it for one. So I just pinned it on there. Now you can close this a few different ways. You can use an invisible seam if you want everything to be nice and seamless. You can just go on the machine and straight stitch it, which is actually probably what I'm going to end up doing, so it's super secure. Or you can use a whip stitch. The idea is to encase all of the beanbag filler so we don't have an explosion later, which will make everybody sad and will create a huge mess. So before I do any sewing, I'm going to clean up my mess. I have the gap all closed with pins, so I'm just going to take it to my machine. I've set the needle to the center so I can get close to that edge. Like I said, normally I do this with an invisible stitch, but it's going to be inside, so no one's going to see it. So for a pillow, you would normally do an invisible stitch. And go back and forth. What I'm doing is angling the seam where it starts and finishes so I don't have any risk of any of the poly pellets coming out. So making sure that I'm catching both edges, double checking. I'm going to have to go back over it one more time, a little bit further down. Making sure I have all my pellets back make the stitching a little easier. So I'm going to give it one more pass because I have a little opening right there. And again, I don't want anything to come out. We have the seam all sealed and nothing will be coming out of there. Super nice. So now what we're going to work on is the denim cover that will go over that. And we're going to hem it, but we're also going to staple it. So what we need to make is a cover that will go over our beanbag insert. So we have that on there. And essentially I want it to go around this edge, but we will see once we add the staples and everything. If this ends up being small, that's fine. And I can always make it smaller, but I can't make it bigger. So I'm going to take this off. We're going to make some measurements of these slats here. So I have enough. So this is about 21 3/4. And the height of it is, I would say, about 3/8. So we're always going to want a little more. So I'm going to adjust it a little to make up for the height of this bag and also where it needs to be sitting. So I'm going to do that math off camera. So I cut the piece for the cover, and a lot of math is involved to get it exactly right, which hopefully works. So I ended up doing a 27 by 16. Now the size of this will vary based on your board that you use, obviously. So I'm going to fiddle with this to see exactly how I want to do it. I think I went to box the edges before I hem it. So I just put seam to seam. because we're going to box it going this way, but the edge will be, it'll come up like that. It'll make sense in a moment. So have that like that. I have to decide how far up I want to box it. I'm guessing about 2 inches will be fine. You can see it both 2 inches here and 2 inches here, because it is a square. There it goes. I'm going to pin along that so when I move it around, it won't come undone. Break out the machine, and same thing as before, I'm just going to follow the line, which in case is in pen, but you can kind of see where it is better with the straight pen than the marking pen. So after I do that, I'm going to trim back the excess, because denim gets really thick really fast, and then turn it back to hem it, which is just going to turn it back like that and stitch around. Alright, so I have all 4 corners done. I want you to notice when you flip it, just like the casing, it's going to box out really nice. So you'll have an edge that goes over an edge. And this is going to be inside, even though this is also 2 inches. Alright, let me push this out of the way. This is going to be inside. This is actually also 2 inches. And normally you would put it like that, and you would notice that you don't have enough on the hemming. However, this case on the outside, the cover is bigger than this inside. So I think on the trajectory of it going from fattest in the center to looser on the sides, it'll allow it to give have a little wiggle room to like flatten out and adjust what the length is and adjust what the boxing may look like in the inside. So anyway, that's my reasoning for that. So we have all those. And you can shape them out with your fingers. And like I said, it's going to be really great to cut back the excess, because once you get through the hemming, denim is notoriously thick. But this isn't excessively thick denim. It's still pretty standard for jeans. So I'm just adjusting everything, and I'll start at the corner. You can see that it kind of makes a straight line. So I'm just going to fold it back, and we use a zigzag stitch to, or maybe a straight stitch, I'll figure it out, to secure everything. Now you could use iron for this if you wanted it to be perfect. I am not explicitly worried about that, or exceptionally worried about that. So I'm just going to turn back the edge just once, not twice. As you can see, it's just once. So I have everything pinned. I'm just taking it back to the machine and probably going to straight stitch just for simplicity. I'm lining it up a little bit beyond, or sorry, you can't see that. I'm lining it up about here so I can go around the edge without it being bulky on the back stitch. And then we'll just zip all around. So I backstitched when I started and finished. That would be nice and secure. So I'm working on finishing this up. I just did a staple around the edges. I'm using a heavy duty staple gun and some heavy duty staples from Dritz. They have a home line. This is a gun I've actually used for a few upholstery projects. So this isn't really much different. I've already done these sides, which is all nice. You can see, try to keep them kind of even. And I ended up making this a second time to adjust my measurements. And I made it a little bigger, or a lot bigger, so it can rest around this edge in addition to one of the slats on each edge. So it looks all nice and neat. And then I'm just pleating these edges since I had to adjust the boxing. It still has the boxing stitch in there, but just tucking that in and pleating it to make it all nice. And we're going to find the center of this. I had it kind of pulled out. I'm just walking my hands down. So I already have that one nice and secure. And finding the middle. So if you haven't ever done stapling, I'm not sure that this would be the ideal first project, only because this wood is very thin as far as like the space you have to staple in. You might want to do like a different thing, like a tuffet or a chair or something like that as your first project where you have a lot of wood to work with. But so I have this just very carefully balanced up there, and like I said, this is not a beginner project. So I'm just trying to get the staples nice and neat as possible, just running my hand down and just spacing them out every couple inches to start with, and then going back in and creating a little bit more stability. And this just kind of stretches the fabric out. Now, if for some reason your staples aren't flush, you can simply just take a hammer and lightly tap it in. So for down here, where we have the pleating, I'm going to make sure we have that poked in, that box corner. And I already have secured it here at the end of the slat. So this is a bit tricky because it's thick right there. So it won't be a perfect thing, but I think for our needs, it'll be alright. So I'm going to stretch that out. Get it nice and flat. Watch out for my fingers. And then I'm going to get one into this corner. If I can. Too far up. You see, I just took that out easy because it wasn't into the wood. So then I might tap that down a little bit later with a hammer to get it really nice through those layers. Alright, so I find because I'm right-handed, going towards the left is easier first than going towards the right because I don't have a hand to smooth it. So one option I can do is just flip it. Below the edge a little, so it's not poking out to the top. Again, down here at the other end, you can see I already have a staple hitting the slat there for the corner, and I already have my boxing corner pushed in and this ready to be stapled down. So I'm going to slide it down, try to get nice tension on it because you don't want everything to be floppy, and get that right in there. And again, line it up and get that in there. So So I'm going to take a hammer and kind of tap these in just to have extra security. But as far as this goes, I mean, you can hear it. Everything's in there. There is some wiggle room around the edge, but I think as far as this goes, like, it won't matter too much. I've already set this on my lap to test it out. If I was to do this again, I might make the insert a little bit longer or accommodate for the 2-inch boxing, which is what I did not do. So I just needed to add maybe an extra inch around each side, which would give it a little bit more room. But I'm glad I redid the casing. So, I mean, you could leave it like that if you were really into like the industrial look, and I might, for the sake of time and the fact that this is just, it looks fine to me. If you wanted it to be a little bit more finished, you could take these finishing nails that Dritz also has. Let me see if I have a pack. Right, so there's this other kind that's let me see if you can see it. Like a flatter kind or like a non-patterned, and there's kinds that have like a little hammer texture. So you could go around and hammer that if you want. You could also finish it off by hot gluing some ribbon along there if you really wanted it finished off. But this is pretty good. Now as far as the top, I mean, I don't mind the way that it looks, but if you wanted it more decorative, you could put, say, like some strips of black to make it look like it was metal, or something on the top to make it look you know, more personalized, whether it's like a team name or it's, you know, like your family initial or last name or something inspirational or just like a cool design. We're just going to keep this the way it is for right now. In the final photos, I might decide to do a little decorative thing, and that would just be using acrylic paint. So that's all for this project. Like I mentioned before, you can definitely customize this to your personal style. I designed this around a particular theme we were given, which was kind of man cave. My decor is more bohemian, so I felt like some rustic things would probably fit in with that. The denim is definitely durable, and like I said before, you can pick any color that you want or something that has a pattern on there. For scale, I did want to show you that you can use that as a laptop board. I don't have a laptop with me, but I do have a sketchbook, which is about the same size, and just some watercolor pencils, where you'd say a mouse, and obviously you still have more room on here. We did pick this board specifically so you could fit different things like your notes and your laptop of different sizes, in addition to being able to fit like a mouse or whatever else you needed to the side. You could use this for crafting. Obviously this is art materials, or whatever you want. You have room for your cup. And the nice thing about this is it isn't too thick, and it'll fit right down on your lap, so you can lounge on the couch while working or playing around the internet or making things. So that's all for today. You guys have a wonderful crafty day. Bye.